I'm Dave Cathy, the Food Dude, and it is my great pleasure today to have Master Chef John Bennett here. And we've got him in the studio today. We've got a new movie coming out, Julie and Julia. And John has his own personal history with Julia Child. And so in honor of Julia, we're going to make some omelets today.
And we're going to make them with the original pan that she inspired for the pot shop in Boston.
Yes, and John has a wondrous collection of all kinds of kitchen artifacts and stuff.
And I use them all the time.
As we're going to do today.
Yeah, as we're going to do today. I have this little portable burner, which really is great. Let me give you the story behind this before I start. Back in the 40s, when they had they were making armaments and in Ohio, and they would make torpedoes, and they'd cut the top off the torpedo, so they had something left that was shaped like this. They would load the torpedo with all the arms. They would throw these in a pile. Somebody had the bright idea to put a handle on it, and so and Julia was in the OSS, and so she knew about this. So she went to the pot shop in 1961 and said to John Fiorelli, she said, she said, I'd like an omelet pan. She said, you got a great shop. He said, omelet pan? He said, I talked to him this morning. He said, I didn't even know what an omelet pan was. So she told him about this. So he got a prototype, and he had this made. Now, this was 1961. Mm-hmm. They're still in business. They're still making the omelet pans. And this was, I talked to him and I asked him, I said, all the rest of them are like light handled, wood handle. But this one's dark. He said it was either 63 or 64. Okay. So this one dates back to the original. Feel how heavy that thing is. I mean, it's very heavy. It's cast aluminum.
Wow.
And it really holds its heat.
So you're going to flip an omelet with that thing?
I hope the hell it doesn't stick.
Well, here we go.
Let's see how that thing works. Okay, let's see. And the thing about this is it's so even heat, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it conducts really well. Now, Julia, one of her first things was make an omelet.
Oh, yeah. That's why I'm doing this, because that was one of the first things she did for the station in Boston. Mm-hmm. She was on a reading show.
I see. Now, you met her when you were in culinary school.
Well, that was a trip. Jim Beard brought her up to the Culinary Institute. This was when, back in the days of, nobody knew who she was.
Right.
And they didn't know who he was, hardly, you know. And like I said in my little note there, size alone determined that he was unusual, and she was too. And Paul came with her, and so it was an interesting afternoon. They got ready to go back to New York. And I said, oh, Julia, we're going back to New York. And Bob Dixon, my friend, said, what? I said, we're going to New York. We're going to meet somebody. And so we rode back to New York with them. And when we got to New York, by the time we'd gotten back there, she said, if you boys are ever in Cambridge, we'd love for you to come by. I said, we're going to be there in 2 weeks. Again, I got the double take. What? So he said, so sure enough, 2 weeks later, we were in Boston, or in Cambridge, and we spent the time with her. And in fact, we did probably 5 or 6 times we went up there.
Yeah.
And when you turn the omelet out, you hold it up like this. I've got to get this a little bit hotter next time. And then it catches on the edge and it flips out. Nice. Did you see that, Kurt?
That's beautiful.
That's an herb omelet. Isn't that great? I can talk about him having to chime in. Kurt Fleischfresher is here.
Our studio audience.
In the peanut gallery. So this is an herb omelet.
Nice.
And then let's set that off to the side.
All right.
Here's a fork.
See if that'll make it very long.
And the thing about omelets is when you make the omelets, they need to, come out and be eaten,
right
almost,
away?
Almost immediately. Yeah, go ahead, taste it. And I always put a little bit of Tabasco in my omelet.
Always good choice.
A friend of mine said the later the hour, the more Tabasco you put in it.
Very good. That sounds like sage advice. So tell me a little bit now. You've got an event coming up, don't you? The Grant House?
Oh, yeah. Hello. We're doing a dinner on October the 8th, kind of a wine dinner, and my friend Bob Dixon, who was my partner in crime.
And who you'll read about in the story.
Oh, good. He lives in Charleston, South Carolina. He's the singing chef of Charleston. And we are, he's going to sing and I'm going to cook, along with Paul, the chef at the Grand House. Okay. And if you haven't ever had their Peking duck there, it's outstanding. The Peking duck is the best. Keep that in mind. And it's very reasonable.
Yes.
Very
It's a great
reasonable.
place to eat.
It is.
Really enjoy going there.
Yeah, and the jalapeno stuffed with shrimp. Yum.
Yeah. Speaking my language.
Okay.
That looks gorgeous.
Just had to get that seasoned a little bit. Let me put a little tomato. And when you make an omelet, if you put a little bit of whatever you put inside, it's always easy to tell what,
There you go.
what you have.
So you've worked in restaurants before.
Yeah, for the last time. Never again. We'll leave that to the youngsters and Kurt.
Tell us about some of the restaurants you have worked on here in the city.
Well, I started my career at the Cellar because of Jim Beard. He was coming to the Oklahoma City to do a cooking class, and I called him, and we'd become friends by that time, and I called him. I said, Jim, why are you going to Oklahoma City? I said, nobody knows how to eat there. And he laughed, And he said, Frank Hightower wants me to come. So I thought, So I called Frank
And he had a
Hightower.
whole building. Frank.
Yeah, it's still in the Hightower family. It's in Maine and Hudson. And so he said, he laughed and he said, when you're in Oklahoma City, come by and see me. So I went by to see him, and the rest, as they say, is history, because I started about a year, maybe 6 months later, and we turned the Cellar into, it was a tea room at the time. We turned it into a full-blown, at that time, expensive restaurant. Wasn't as expensive as Coach House is now, but sorry. Couldn't help that. All right. Am I doing this right, Kurt?
Yeah, I'm good.
I always have to get the elders' advice.
Right.
And I'll do one more, kind of a dessert omelet. This dessert omelet was inspired by a trip that we took. I rented a train, actually a train car, back in about 67 or 68 for Alec Wall's birthday. Did you read that in the archives?
No.
There's a story in there. It's really funny. We loaded it up, went to Ardmore, and on the way down, Larry Brannon, who's still around, did strawberry and sour cream omelets.
Oh, man.
So that was in the 60s.
Ardmore is your birthplace, right?
Uh-huh.
That's right. From humble beginnings,
Ardmore,
America.
Ardmore's a great town. It was never the same after that. We took over the took over the depot. I had those carts, baggage carts with the buffet on it, and I had wheelbars full of wine and ice. And Charlie Bennett, who was then the editor of the Daily Oklahoman, and became a good friend, had gone ahead, hired a couple of guys to hold up signs that said "Cavet Chef." So it was a fun experience. We were celebrating Alec Wall, the authors. He wrote Wine and Spirits for Time magazine. We were celebrating his birthday. He was about 80 then. That was back in the 60s. He and his mistress. Okay.
Oh, we got a little bit of everything here.
This is strained Greek yogurt. You can get that at the Crescent Market.
Excellent. Good
And
place.
fresh-
Good local place to shop.
Oh my gosh, they've got one of a kinds and what is the other word that they go? Hard to finds and one of a kinds.
There you go.
Yeah. So that's that's kind of my tribute to Julia with this omelet pan.
Well, Chef Bennett, thanks so much. Are you planning to see the movie?
Oh yeah, we're going tomorrow, aren't we? Yeah, we're
There you
gonna
go. Get it all set up.
Get a preview tomorrow.
I expect to hear your corrections of it and everything.
If there's one thing I'm not short of, it's opinion. so I will certainly give you my opinion.
Very good, and I'll give you I'll give you an opinion here in a minute, but my mouth may be full.
Okay,
So-
well, we'll start with the freshest.
All right, very good. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Enjoyed it.